Like that research I did is something that I am so proud of. It was part of my undergraduate thesis, but it was like such an enlightening project for me.
That's
So
awesome.
it holds like a really like it's a dear part of me.
Hey, today I speak with Farah Aziz Annesha, who won the ISD Student Research Award in 2022. Farah wrote the fascinating paper titled Swapno Radio, A Tale of Birth Dreams in Bangladesh. Now, the ISD Student Research Award, for those who don't know it, are given to students, undergraduate or graduates, to support just original scientific, literary, artistic, or theoretical research on dreams. So ISD has been doing this for forever, and it's so amazing to hear from people who have actually done this research and gotten this award. So thank you for being here, Farah. Would you mind telling us first, what does Swapnaraja mean, and what is your research about?
So, Shopna is a Bangla word. I am from Bangladesh and my native language is Bangla. So, Shopna is a Bangla word which means dream kingdom. So, Shopna is dream and Rajyo is kingdom. So, together it's dream kingdom. And it's kind of similar to how you always talk about dreamlands. So that's the title of my paper, and the paper is actually a ethnographic study on the Bangladeshi dream culture of expectant mothers, and
Mm.
it is a study that is based off a Korean dream tradition called Taemong. So I did my undergrad in South Korea, and while I was there, I took a class about dreams, and in that class, we learned about and got acquainted to the concept of Taemong. So Taemong is a Korean dream tradition where expectant mothers they have these vivid dreams that usually are very memorable, something that they always remember, and this is before they get to know that they're pregnant. And they use those dream symbolisms to kind of predict the gender and also the fate and destiny of the unborn child.
That's a
So this is,
beautiful tradition.
yeah,
So
it's
it's
very fascinating. And this is,
absolutely.
yeah, and this is something I learned over there. And while I was doing that course, I became very fascinated with dreams. And then I mean it's a whole story, but what happened is eventually I did my undergraduate thesis on this concept, and what I did was I based my research on the idea of Temong and think, well, is there a similar kind of dream culture, dream tradition of expectant mothers in Bangladesh?
Was it a known idea or concept in Bangladesh that you knew of before you started to research,
No,
or
not
not
at
at all?
Not at all. So in Bangladesh, dreams are kind of dismissed. Usually
Okay.
it's something that's whimsical. You don't really take it seriously. So, but then while in my sophomore year, when I took the course, when we were learning about Taemong, we had like an assignment about like my professor basically told us like look around you and find maybe talk to your mother, talk to your aunt, someone and ask them if they had these very vivid, memorable dreams while they were pregnant or before they knew that they were expecting, and try to see what kind of symbolisms you find in those dreams,
Right.
and see like if there's any similarities between like the Korean tradition and their interpretation of those dreams and mills and what you found from your sources. So I went around asking my mother, my aunt, everyone around me about that, and what I realized was there were a lot of common themes, but also that there's like actually there is a dream kind of culture that has been kind of passed down from generations through like word of mouth. And there are like this certain kind of interpretations of pregnancy dreams that exist in Bangladesh, but no one has actually written about it. But
Oh,
it's
that's so
something that
interesting.
is kind of well known if you're like a woman and you're growing up in this country, and it's still something that is believed widely in the more rural areas and villages of Bangladesh. So it was a very short, really amazing project I did initially in my sophomore year. And then in my senior year, while I was thinking about what to do about my undergraduate thesis, my major was in literature. So I was trying to think about what to do, and I suddenly thought about this project, this little mini project I did. And I thought, well, why don't I try to like find do the same thing but in a wider and a bigger proportion, a larger aspect, and try to find if there are kind of like these dream traditions, dream interpretation myths in Bangladesh, and also try to interpret those dreams according to Bangladeshi culture,
Hmm.
the tradition, religious beliefs, kind of also like cross-cultural context, because like Bangladesh is part of South Asia, and South Asia is kind of like a melting pot of different sorts of cultures, beliefs, and like stuff. And all of those actually kind of influence what you see in your dreams actually, and how you end up interpreting them in your real life. It was a very amazing and enlightening journey that I had, because initially I did not know what I would end up finding, but what I ended up finding was that there's like a very distinct belief system and dream culture and dream interpretations that happen across everywhere in Bangladesh, but it's something that people don't really think about consciously. It's whenever someone gets pregnant and they have like a dream and they're telling maybe their grandmother or their mother, for example, there's this idea that if you see snakes in your dreams, you there's a high chance that you will have a boy. It's very interesting because there's a lot of similarities between Themong interpretations and the interpretations I found in Bangladesh. So even like for example, another example I could give is if you dream of the sun in your dreams, there's a high chance that you will have a boy. But if you see the moon, you will have a girl. And it's similar in like across I think Asia, where there's this association of the sun with a masculine energy and the moon with a feminine energy. And it was just fascinating just learning about this different kind of myths, these traditions, this like interpretations. There's also a lot of interpretation based off of religion, and Bangladesh is a majorly Muslim country, and Islam also has had a tradition of dream interpretation in the religion itself. Like Islamic beliefs form like a really big part of culture and identity of a Bangladeshi. So when I was talking to my sources, they always ended up talking about, oh yes, I dreamt about that, and then I knew that like in the Islamic interpretation of dreams, there's like this idea that if you see this, this is what it means. And so there were a lot of like connections between like culture but also like religious beliefs. So in Islam there's also like there's actually a book about Islamic dream interpretation that I ended up finding, and I also used that to kind of analyze the dreams I collected through my sources, and I basically interpreted those dreams and also analyzed them according to like cultural beliefs, religious beliefs, and also just history in general.
Yeah, let me get back to your method because I was going to ask about that. It's really cool. I mean, this is fascinating. Like, so far, I'm already blown away by the fact that it's so nice to compare these cultures and to see all these
Yeah.
similarities, but
Mhm.
also that beautiful thing that you said, where you just ask the people around you, where people really don't talk about this, so you don't see the patterns. Because why would you if no one talks about it?
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
did that. You asked everyone. And then not only did you see patterns, but also you took it a step further and thought, let me just research this. Um,
Yeah.
I'm very happy that you did that. And specifically because we all kind of have this feeling of how culture reflects in dreams, but also how more connected we are as humans. We're not that different, really.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
when you start to compare cultures, you kind of see, yeah, we don't see the world that differently, really, when you start talking about very personal things like dreams.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really love that. So you say you've asked people about dreams. Can you say a little bit more like what was your sample size? What did you do?
It was an interesting thing because I did not initially know who to talk to.
That's
I
what I was
thought,
thinking. Like you don't
yeah,
go up
because
in the street.
yeah, you don't go up in the streets over there, and also it's just because if you're, for example, in Korea, it's such a big part of their identity, and it's something that's very significant in their culture. So everyone even if you go out on the streets, and you ask them like, what was your temang? What did your mother see when she was pregnant with you? They would have a story. They would be like, okay, this is what she saw, and this is what they interpreted out of it, and this is how my life is going according to that. And I think I
Wow.
find similarities between like what they saw and what they kind of interpreted
Mhm.
and how my life is going. And it's like interesting, but trying to do that in Bangladesh is like very different because no one really thinks about this, and again, no one really, the people are kind of dismissive of dreams. So initially, I just started talking to my cousins who like who had kids. I started talking, reaching out to my acquaintances, so everyone I knew around me, my friends, their mothers, their aunts, my sister's friends, and then I basically ended up going on social media. So I ended up going to different groups like about like pregnancy groups or like groups about expecting mothers. I even ended up going through all these groups in like Bangladeshi groups, and then I just posted about this. I ended up writing posts like, I'm doing this kind of research. If anyone is interested, could you please like contact me over here? I even like had like Google Forms done. I created Google Forms. I posted them over there, and I was like, I would really appreciate if you could, if you're interested, if you could take a few minutes of your day to just talk to me. And interestingly, I got a lot of responses. My sample size wasn't huge, but I think I had around 20 people that I talked to in total, consisting of both acquaintances who were very interested in this, and also just very nice strangers who found my post on the social media platforms and were very interested in this sort of very new kind of research that they've never heard of. And usually my interview would start with them saying, I have never ever seen someone doing like a research about dreams because it's something that's like very new and unheard of in Bangladesh. So that's what I did. I ended up talking to them, and it was very fun, but also very enlightening because I would like tell them, and usually it's like if it's a big part of your culture, you would end up remembering it so
Mhm.
that
Yes.
you would like keep it in your mind, and if anyone asks you, you would be like, okay, this was the story. But when you're unprepared and you've never really thought about it, it takes a few minutes. So I would have to like jog their memory. I would end up like asking them many like detailed questions like, okay, so did you have like dreams? And usually they would be like, yeah, I guess I did, I don't really remember them. And then I would like ask them like, okay, so how, like, tell me, describe the dream to me. And it would usually be like one or two sentences that, oh, I saw a snake in my dream.
Mhm.
But usually that's not enough for me to go on about. So I would ask them like, okay, what kind of snakes did you see? Like, were they big? Were they small? What color were they? What were they doing? What kind of setting were you in? Like, try to give me as many details because when I was doing the course on Themong and reading, there's a book on about dream interpretations based on Themong. A lot of the interpretations were based on the color of the subject in
Mm.
the dream,
Right.
the color, the action, what were they doing, and a lot of that is used to kind of predict the gender and also kind of like the life trajectory of the child. So I would end up asking very detailed questions to my sources and ask them, and just tell them like, tell me what you felt, what was your response afterwards, did you talk to someone about it, what was their response, did someone in your family like tell you about any myths about like, okay, if you saw that, that means you're gonna have a boy or you're gonna have a girl. So yeah, that's how I ended up doing the interviews.
Oh, love, very in depth though. Yeah, that must
Yeah,
have taken a lot of work. Yeah. Now
it
there's
did.
two things that I want to ask you. One is, we're going to get that in a second. Like, what did you find? But I think a lot of people listening now also are wondering, so did you find it was true? If you see a snake, do you get a boy? Or did you not research that, but just the attitude that people have to it?
I mean, I can't say I didn't have a huge sample size to be
Hmm.
like, that is for sure that if you see a snake, you will end up have a boy, end up having a boy. But more often than not, that it was true.
Okay,
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
and And it's interesting because I think once you have the child, you start making connections to like, oh, I did see that. So maybe it's true. And a lot of my subjects were telling me that, oh, yes, I did hear that dream myth and that dream interpretation. And someone told me that if I saw that, that probably means I will have a boy. And then I did end up having a boy. So I think those are like true.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, no. And also there's this other thing, like I don't know how sensitive we are as humans, but if you kind of feel like maybe it's a boy and then you know the myth of it's a boy, that means
Yes.
I'm going to dream of a snake. Does that mean that the thought it
Yeah.
might be a boy will
Yeah.
induce the dream of a snake? So that is
Yeah.
hard to research, but I did want to bring it up because I
Yeah.
know that people will be like, and so what did you find? What did you find? Even though it might not be that one-on-one. And it might also be true for cultures that don't have those myths in their collective
Mhm.
cultural
Mhm.
narrative. Anyway, tangent. What I am more interested in is what did you find? So you talked to all these people, you interviewed them in depth to really get into their minds of what was going
Mhm.
on here, and what
Mhm.
was the conclusion of your research?
The conclusion was that there is an existing kind of dream culture in Bangladesh and also dream interpretation based on that. And a lot of the times, perhaps because people believe it, or I'm not sure how to, because it's very difficult to like, kind of quantify these things. But people did end up having like boys if they were seeing the sun, or
Hmm.
if they were seeing the moon, they ended up having girls. And it's kind of interesting. And it's interesting. And another interesting thing that I found was that there's a lot of similarities between like
Mm,
Tamil interpretations and like Bangladesh interpretations that I ended up doing, is that the same symbolisms usually end up meaning the same kind of, you get to the same conclusion. So if you're
right.
seeing a tiger, usually it kind of says that you will probably have a boy. So it's like my conclusion was not kind of like definitive, like okay, this is exactly what it will mean if you see this. But my conclusion was more like there is a vast amount of actually information about dream traditions and dream cultures that do need to be more studied in depth in the future. And that they actually, like the fact that they actually exist in Bangladesh, where people don't even think of dreams as something, significant in their daily lives. But the fact that they exist and it has been passed on
Yeah.
from generation to generation, but it's like I felt like I was probably the first person actually writing about them, and kind of having a record that okay, there is a myth, a dream kind of tradition over here, and kind of interpretations that we have based on our culture, but also how it's so similar to other cultures that are around us. And I think that was a very fascinating find of my
Yeah.
research.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's something to really, I mean, I think you're a pioneer, and I think that specifically that part of it warrants a little bit more research,
Hmm.
maybe by other pioneers.
Yeah.
Like how did you even hear of the IASD Student Dream Research Awards, and how did you decide to apply for it?
It was actually the professor who did that course, who I did that course about dreams with. He is well acquainted with the board of members at IASD, and I he was the one who actually told us about it in class first. And eventually, when I was in my senior year, once I had kind of submitted my undergraduate thesis to him, and he was also my supervisor for that thesis. So he knew exactly what I was doing, the kind of thesis I was doing. And then like, in my last semester, probably in college, that he ended up emailing me and telling me that, hey, Farah, there's like this award for like research on dreams, and I would want you to like participate in that. So please do participate. Send I think your research is amazing, and I think it deserves to be there. I think you have a chance at like perhaps winning an award, but more importantly, I think it's going to be a great contribution over there. So he
I
was
think
the one
so.
who kind of kept emailing me about it, because I was in the midst of finals at that time, so I was busy, and I read his email and I forgot about it, and then he ended up emailing me maybe a day or two before the deadline for submission,
Wow.
and he was like, "Did you submit it?" And I realized, oh, I have not submitted, and so I started like actually working on my piece because my thesis was actually pretty big, but
Mm.
there's like a word limit, so I had to like cut it down and trim it up a bit, and then I ended up submitting it, and I honestly I forgot about it afterwards because I did not wasn't really expecting anything. So it was a very beautiful surprise when I heard that I did end up like winning one of the categories.
Yeah, this award, what I personally love about it is because I get to see this research, and like your professor said, it's not just we love to support research, but
Mhm.
also getting to know about something. Like you and I would never have met without this
Yeah,
award, and
yeah,
now
that
I
is
know
true.
about this brilliant line of study, and the idea that even though one culture talks so much about dreams and the other culture almost doesn't talk about dreams, doesn't matter, still pops up, the same idea still pops up. That
Yeah,
is, to me, it's kind of heartwarming in a way. And without
yeah.
you, I would never have known that.
Yes, it was very, I think I went into this research pretty blind, not really knowing what to expect. And it was pleasantly surprising and enlightening to know the kind of connections between humans
Yeah,
and how similar we think, and kind of like the beautiful expectations you have. I think kind of at the background of all of this is just the hope and the emotions of parents, well, about their expecting, like when they're expecting and they're expecting a new child, a new life to be born. And all of these dreams are just, and these dream interpretations are just a way for them to celebrate the life that is being developed at that point of time.
that's beautifully said. I love that. Would you have any advice for people who think, debate with themselves whether they want to submit research or not?
Definitely go for it. I would also say that if you're doing any kind of research on dreams, to be very open-minded and to be prepared for pleasant surprises, because you never really know where it's going to go, but it might lead you to really beautiful things and really significant things that you had not thought of about before. Or you might have people who are quite don't understand why you're doing this research, and but I would say don't get discouraged by that. Keep doing it because it will be important, because I do feel like dreams are a big part of our lives. And although kind of with science and everything and society as a whole has decided that maybe they're not as important as real life because they don't really have such a big impact on reality, however they're a big part of what our lives are. And especially, like, I mean, we study about brains all the time because we're trying to understand how the brain, works, and how it's such an amazing, like, amazing part of humans. But also imagination, creativity, and dreams all are in the same kind of compartment. And if
Mm.
you're going to if you're going to study about brains, and you're going to study about how brain kind of creates thoughts and perceptions, you're also going to end up trying to understand how it even creates dreams. And I think that's very significant.
Oh,
So
yeah.
anyone who tells you that your research is probably not that important, tell them that it is. And the fact that you're doing it also already makes you a much more amazing person than everyone else.
I love that. Yes, yes. Now, just back to the now. You have an impressive resume. I mean, you have
Mhm.
a bachelor degree in life science and biotechnology. You have a degree in comparative literature and culture, and now you're working on a master's in science communication, and you're a science writer and a journalist,
Yeah.
specialized in health and medicine. Come on. What are you working on now?
Right now, as you said, I'm doing my master's degree. I'm in the US right now doing it. I'm currently in Santa Cruz. So I'm doing my master's in University of Santa Cruz. I am a science communicator, I am a science writer, and I am learning to write about the amazing science that happens around us, and write it in a way that everyone can become excited about it, because I basically act as a bridge between scientists and the public. I tell them what all the amazing things in science that is happening right now, and that usually people are kind of not really aware of, or they are not really keen on reading because scientists can have a lot of really difficult jargon. What I do is I take that, I turn it into a story, and because these are all stories happening around us with science, and that's what I am doing right now. I'm taking all the science happening around me in nature, in health, in every aspect that I have around me, and I'm turning that into stories that you would like reading about. And I would just like to say that in my research, there was a section where I talked about the science behind dreaming
Mhm.
and the science behind pregnancy dreams. And it was one of the most interesting and fascinating things I wrote. While it was one of my favorite parts, actually, of the
Yeah.
entire thesis I did, because my professor he told me that since you have a science background, you probably will be able to write that really well. And it was also what kind of led me into science writing and science journalism, because while I was writing about the science behind dreaming and all the fascinating aspects of it, that's when I realized that I could actually, like, this is like amazing that I'm getting to like write about science, because
Yeah.
I did have a science background, but I never really got to like talk about it to my other peers in my literature department. So when I was able to finally write it down, I saw that this is amazing, and that's kind of what propelled me to end up in science communication and become a science writer.
I can see that. I mean, you tell a great story. I'm hanging on your every word. You noticed that, right? Yeah. No, and now I want to do a whole different episode on the science of dreams, of pregnancy dreams, but that's not for today.
Yes.
That is like really cool. Thank you so much for explaining this, for being here, for sharing your enthusiasm. If people want to find you or curious about you, where can they find you?
They can find me on my LinkedIn, and I also do have a website, so they can also find me on my website.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I mean, I hope this inspires people to also sign up for the
Yes,
award.
yes, I really do. I think it's an important award that I would not have known about unless I did this research. And also, I think because this researching on dreams is something that a lot of people might not think about immediately, but it's something so fascinating. And the more you do the research, the more you learn so many amazing aspects of it. So I think this should get more recognition, and people should definitely dive into dreams a bit more and definitely sign up for this award, because this is like amazing motivation to keep doing your research.
Yeah, and for us to learn about it. Thank you so much, Farah. This was
Thank
amazing.
you so much. Because I think when I was doing the research, I read a lot of books on like the science behind conception dreams and pregnancy
Hmm.
dreams, because it's like a kind of like a shared common thing that happens across the world. And in my research too, I did a lot of literature review of like different parts of the world and how they kind of interpret, and also like what the science says behind like
Hmm.
pregnancy dreams. So I had like a Western, I had dug up like so many, much like in the 19th century or 18th century books that were written about like pregnancy dreams and what they kind of mean. And then I found resources throughout South Asia. And then,
Wow.
of course, in East Asia as well. I mean, East Asia, the most common is the Themong that you
Hmm.
find over there. The books over it about that my professor basically gave me. He's like, read about them, write about them.
Hmm.
So that, but then while I was doing my research, I found like books, like for example, the Islamic book on dream interpretation. It was amazing because it's such an amazing read, but like it's like kind of lost to time in a way,
Mm, yeah.
because it's there, but it's like people have forgotten about it. But it's a really great resource. And then while I was doing that, I found like several other kind of dream traditions across like Pakistan, in India, in Bangladesh. And it was like crazy because I did
Fascinating.
not know anything about all of this, but
Yeah.
while doing the research, I just did dug and dug and dug, and I found all of these things, and it was just crazy. I still don't know how I ended up doing that research back then. It
Yeah.
was it was crazy because I did it within like, I think I did most of the bulk of my work within like 1.5 months.
Wow.
Um, and my entire research was like a 90-page research.
How, woman? How?
But the reason why it took me so like I was on a time crunch
Hmm.
because that semester was also during COVID, and I did not really realize how great of a piece it was until I finally gave it to like a few of my friends asked me like, can you like share your research? I do want to read your thesis.
Hmm.
I ended up sharing it to them, and they all had like amazing reviews about it. They told me how amazing it is, and I was like thrilled. I was like,
There
wow.
you
I
go.
was like,
Yes.
it's like you don't really realize how like it's such a good piece, but
Hmm.
you because you've been working in it and you've just been in the
Hmm.
midst of it all, you don't really realize how amazing the
Oh,
things you found.
my social media brain was thinking people need to know about this. That's basically my mission in life. Every time I read research, I think people must know about this. This is too
Yes,
fascinating.
yes, it's
So
too fascinating.
I think people are going to love it in the sense that people love to hear about dream research. They just do.
It's fascinating, and it's like it's amazing how we don't actually. This is not like an actual like how should I say it, like a it should be a part of like school curriculum and like
Yeah.
college, especially college curriculum. Like if you're into research, this is like a fascinating thing to research. Whether it's you're doing
Hmm.
science research or creative research, any kind of research, dreams are
Absolutely.
always fascinating.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. That is absolutely true.